Hey, what's going on everybody? Well, as you guys can see by the title of the video, in today's video we're going to be going over my soil test results. Now, ended up getting my soil test done and sent out on a Tuesday. I ended up receiving my results on a Saturday. So, if you are choosing to go with the My Soil Test Kit, I would say you could expect to get your results back within a week's time frame. Now, let's go ahead and get to the main part, which is going over my soil test results. What I'm going to go ahead and do right now is throw up graphs here on both sides. With that being said, I'm going to be looking at my phone in this video, obviously reading off the results to you guys. So if you see me looking down, going over that, that's what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and get to it. Alrighty, you guys, now let's go ahead and read off my results. So I'm going to be looking at the other graph, which actually shows mainly the breakdown of the raw soil data. I'm going to be reading off that graph, which shows the number breakdown and the ranges of them. So starting right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and read off from top to bottom, starting with pH. pH being the most important one. As you can see, my result for that is a 6.83. Optimum range is 5.8 to 7.0. So really happy and stoked on that my pH is in the optimum range. What I would say is I would honestly like it to be a little bit lower, maybe at like 6.6 to 6.5 range. I would be really happy at that, but where it's at right now, I'm still stoked, and that is awesome. Now moving on to nitrogen. As you can see, my nitrogen is relatively low. It was low last year as well, but I think I did bump it up a little bit. I would have to look at my old results just to see how much it did get bumped up. But as you can tell, it's still relatively low. Now my result for nitrogen at 3.06, optimum range being 7.0 to 18.0. So relatively low in nitrogen, as you can see. Now moving down to phosphorus, my phosphorus, as you can tell, is high. I'm at 17.45, optimum range being 5.0 to 11.0. Now, the reason why I think that's still high is because there was a few times, what was it, not last year, but the year before that, I did use quite a bit of the starter fertilizer that they recommend for Seashore Pass Palm, which was a 6-20-20. So with that being said, had a pretty substantial rate of phosphorus in there. So I think that's why my phosphorus levels are high. That's the only thing I could think of, is because I used quite a bit of that fertilizer. Okay, now moving on down to potassium. As you can see, my potassium is a little bit low at 31.42, optimum range being 38 to 72. To sulfur. At sulfur, as you can see, my sulfur number is way up in the stratosphere. I'm at 209.64, optimum range being 7 to 16. So I'm way up there in sulfur. Moving down to calcium right after that. Calcium is at 658.57, optimum range being 93 to 314. So that number is way up there as well. So what I could say is I think the main reason for that is because I used quite a bit of gypsum last year. So I think that's why those numbers are really high, because gypsum does have a pretty high percentage of both of those when you put it down. So I think that's why those are so high. Now moving on down to magnesium. As you can see, my magnesium level is in the optimum range at 32.88, optimum range being 28 to 67. So super happy and stoked that my magnesium level is in the optimum range. That's cool, good to know. Moving down to sodium. 64.31, optimum range being 0.5 to 30. As you can see, my sodium level is relatively high there. Moving on down to iron. Iron being at 0.74, optimum range being 4.0 to 11. So as you can tell, that is low. Now, obviously, I am definitely going to be putting a lot more iron down as well. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you guys about a game plan that I'm probably gonna use, or what fertilizers I'm gonna be using at the end. So moving on down to manganese. My manganese level is low at 3.27, optimum range being 4 to 12. So we could bring that up a little bit. Zinc is at 0.14, optimum range being 0.1 to 0.25. So that's pretty cool to know that my zinc's in the optimum range. Moving on down to copper is at 0.04, optimum range being 0.07 to 0.28. As you can tell, that is low. And then finally, my boron being at 0.02, optimum range being 0.22 to 0.66. So those last two are low. Alrighty, you guys. Well, those are my results from my soil test for this year. Now, what I will say is if this is your first time doing a soil test for your lawn, the 4 things I would say you need to pay attention to is your NPK ratio and your pH. NPK ratio meaning your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then obviously after that, or along with that, your pH level. So those are the 4 things I would say you really need to keep an eye on when you look at your soil test results. I'm not saying the micronutrients and all that other stuff is not important. It is important, but as far as what your lawn uses the most would be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then also your pH, meaning how good is your soil and how is it really doing and how is your lawn thriving in that environment of that soil. Finally, what I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about is what my fertilizer plan is going to look like for this upcoming season. Now, what I will say right off the bat is all of last season, I pretty much stuck with the 1806 fertilizer. Now, considering obviously I just shared my results with you guys, I'm looking into probably sticking with that 1806 fertilizer. Considering I don't need any phosphorus, that's honestly perfect for me, and it also has a lot of the micronutrients that I still need. So, however, considering my nitrogen level is still relatively low or pretty low, I'm looking into and I'm thinking about mixing in some ammonium sulfate in this year as well. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with ammonium sulfate is basically a nitrogen or strictly nitrogen fertilizer. Has 2100. So no phosphorus, no potassium, just nitrogen. However, it does have sulfate in it, or sulfur, which will also help bring down my pH a little bit. Now, what I will say as well is I am gonna plan the spoon feed again this year. I did it last year. I really liked the results that I got when I did spoon feeding all of last year, so I'm gonna be sticking with that again this year. So if you guys aren't familiar with what spoon feeding is basically just when you take whatever fertilizer you're using and you apply it at a lower rate but more frequently. Since I am planning to do that again this year as far as spoon feeding goes, what I am thinking is I might be able to alternate between the two, where I might be able to use 1806 for a little bit and then mix in ammonium sulfate here and there. The key thing here is when I do use the ammonium sulfate, I am gonna apply it at a lower rate, almost as if I'm using it like I'm spoon feeding that as well. The thing is what you don't wanna do, and this is why if I do choose to use ammonium sulfate, I'm gonna apply it at a lower rate. The thing you don't wanna do is overload your lawn with a bunch of nitrogen at once. You definitely don't want to do that. Honestly, it could be, I wouldn't say catastrophic, but it could have adverse effects on your lawn to where it does more damage than it does good. So that's why I'm thinking about approaching it the way I told you guys. As far as when I do use ammonium sulfate, it's going to be at a lower rate, as almost as if I'm spoon feeding that as well. So that's why I'm thinking about incorporating the ammonium sulfate with my 1806 this year. Or pretty much what I could do is alternate the two. So like 1 month, I could probably use my 1806, and then the next month I could use ammonium sulfate at lower rates, and it could probably work out pretty well for me. That's honestly what I'm thinking my game plan is gonna be for this season. I honestly think it would do really well, and like I said, it will help bring down my pH level a little bit, and yeah. To be honest, that's probably what I'm going to stick with. Very simple and easy for me. I don't really have to get anything new or mix it up at all, aside from getting the ammonium sulfate, which I honestly think I've used ammonium sulfate in the past when I was working on baseball fields, and that stuff is pretty crazy as far as like just how it works, I mean, it really gives your lawn a boost. So I think if I went ahead and incorporate it with, you know, my fertilizer plan this year, I think it's going to serve my lawn pretty well. I just got to make sure that I'm not overloading my lawn with too much nitrogen, even though I am spoon feeding like I am planning to again this year. Just something I got to keep an eye on and just manage it. With all that being said, that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy watching this video, please go ahead, smash that thumbs up button for me. As I always continue to say, it really helps me out. It lets me know what you guys are enjoying on the channel. After doing that, smash that subscribe button down below and hit the bell notifications. That way you can get notified for when I upload new videos. I got my social medias in the description below. With all that being said, it's your boy C-Pims. Peace out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.